Hello and welcome to Impact the Borough, the podcast from the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. I'm Brent Christensen, President and CEO of the Chamber. Each week, we'll check in with our partners to share inspiring stories and important information from across the borough, highlighting what we're doing to start and grow businesses, create quality jobs, and develop our workforce. This podcast is brought to you by Triad Federal Credit Union, a modern, mission-driven financial institution focused on the needs of its members, the businesses it serves, and our community. With 5 locations in Guilford County, including a dedicated commercial lending office at Friendly Center and a highly rated mobile banking app, Triad makes it their business to help you grow yours. Visit Truliant.org for more information.
Welcome to Impact the Borough podcast. I'm Flanders-Stec, Executive Vice President for Entrepreneurship, running Launch Greensboro, the entrepreneurship initiative of the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. Here at Launch Greensboro, we support entrepreneurs as they start, build, and grow their business through education, mentorship, and access to capital. Through our programmatic offerings, we help entrepreneurs develop the skills and garner the connections needed for their sustainability and growth. Today's topic is focused on our access to capital mission. Through Launch, we provide access to capital via our annual Capital Connects pitch competition, which we'll talk a bit more about later at the end of the podcast, and First Launch Capital Fund, which is really the focus of this podcast. I've got 2 amazing investors, entrepreneurs here with me today that are partners in this work. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. First, Adam, if you'll introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background.
Yes, my name is Adam Duggins. I am the managing partner for New Page Capital. I am actually a boomerang, so born and raised in Greensboro, but went away for roughly 15 years before moving back and starting New Page. And New Page is focused on growing and investing existing businesses here in the Triad, kind of what we call grown-up mom and pops that, where we're trying to act as a succession plan to manufacturing and industrial businesses here in the Triad. I'm also on the investment committee for First Launch Capital and on the advisory board for Launch Greensboro.
Thank you, Adam. And James Bauler is also here with us today. So James, give us a little bit about your background.
Hey, Luann, thanks for having me on. James Bauler, and on the call, I actually wear 2 hats. So I work for Cone Health System there in Greensboro. We're $2.5 billion net patient revenue health system. And we have a corporate venture team there, Cone Health Ventures. And so I'm the principal of that team, and our role in the health system is working with our operational leaders to identify pain points and then finding early stage companies, early stage technologies that we can bring into the health system to improve patient care, health outcomes, or efficiencies wherever we can find those. The second hat I wear is as the CFO of one of our portfolio companies. And so in that case, Fuse Oncology was built around technology that we had developed over years at Cone in our radiation oncology department. We saw so much impact in our service delivery and in our practice that we felt compelled to get that technology out to the broader market. And so we stood up a company there. We launched it a little over a year ago with your support. And I'm actually at the Astro trade show in San Antonio today representing Fuse to the rest of the radiation oncology world. So happy to be here.
Thank you both for being here. And I'm excited to discuss this really vital topic to communities everywhere. So we know that the data shows that startups and small businesses create a majority of new jobs. And we also know that most of those companies need capital and that those investment dollars are hard to find and receive, especially in communities that don't have a traditional venture capital fund or that long range history of supporting startups. So in our community, what do you see that we're doing to address this issue? And how do you see the activities that we are doing impacting our community? Adam, you want to start on that one?
Yeah, I think the first thing, in my experience, having been in other communities, The first thing that we've really, I think, done a nice job of over the past, call it 5 to 7 years, is just building an awareness of even this kind of asset class. I think often in smaller markets, it's not as top of mind. So if you go to a larger market, startups are much more out there. There's just a lot more of them. And so my experience when I first moved back here was just a lot of investors who I think had interest in the idea, but didn't necessarily understand how to take that idea and turn it into an actual investment of supporting homegrown entrepreneurs here in the community. So I think from that standpoint, I think we've grown a lot as the Triad to really start to emphasize that. You see that with news coverage, you see that just frankly, in just conversations with different potential investors in the community. And so growing that investor base, I think, has been a real success story of this area over the last, call it 5 to 7 years.
That's great. And that's a great point. And I also think that it's been beneficial in developing First Launch Capital Fund and the work that we're doing. James, I know you are not physically located in the Triad region, you're in the Boone area, but you are here often working at Cone Ventures. So what do you see in that space?
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting, when you think about trying to get a startup ecosystem or community going, is it is a community. You need both sides. And so Adam, I think, did a great job articulating how you help investors in that community get engaged, become aware, grow comfortable, participating in early stage companies. And for us, we spend a lot of our time helping to draw those early stage companies into the Greensboro area. Working through Cone, the Cone Health Ventures model is not a lead capital model. We lead with access to the health system and access to operational leaders and the opportunity for an early stage company to more efficiently and quickly navigate the bureaucracies of a health system. And, the health system in general, it's a complicated, it's a complex environment. And oftentimes it doesn't play with early stage companies. So what we're able to do is help those companies navigate that, help bring them in and draw them into the Greensboro community environment using the Cone Health System platform. And then that's where, by connecting with you all and folks like Adam, we're able to also help capitalize those companies. So now that their product has found a decent product market fit, they're starting to get a little bit of traction, they're ready to start scaling. The access to capital is what really helps them take off. So it's a really good combination of resources coming together to have a pretty big impact.
So James, you started talking about Cone Health Ventures and describing a bit of the model. Why don't you explain a little bit more to our listeners how that works and what that Pronovo Cone Health Ventures concept is and why it's important to Cone and to our community? Yeah,
sure. So I'll start with the model. So the way that we approach things is we recognize that the health system itself needs innovation, right? We're pretty much everybody has had some experience in healthcare where we thought, wow, that could have been done a little bit better. And the health system has that same feeling. It's like, man, we really want to get better and better at what we do and how we care for our patients. And one of the ways you do that anyhow is through innovation. And oftentimes it's easier to find external innovation, new ideas and concepts that you can bring in. So we look for those opportunities. We look inside the health system where we have an operational leader who's saying, hey, I really want to improve this metric or this aspect of what we're doing in the health system. It helps articulate that to us, and we go out and find companies who are trying to solve that same problem. And when we can put those two things together, there's a real exchange of value. The early stage company gets access to the health system, they get feedback from real users, they get the opportunity to dial in product market fit. On the other side, the operational leader gets improvement in whatever it is in their service line that they're working on at that time. And then ultimately, patients in our community benefit because our service delivery, our speed of care, any aspect really what we're there to do, serve our patients, is improved through that. So by existing in that space between the startup and the health system, we are able to help ensure that both sides are more successful in their endeavor.
So as a leader in the innovation, entrepreneurship, economic development space, I love the model, as you know already, because we've talked about it some. And I'm thrilled that y'all are here doing the work, and excited about what's coming next. Adam, can you share a little bit more about New Page Capital? I mean, the model that you've developed is really an interesting investment model to me, and I'd love for the audience to hear more about that process and how you're building businesses in our community.
Yeah, so New Page really spawned from the idea that over the last, when I wasn't here, when I wasn't living here, I often would hear folks in kind of the financial investment realm talk about investing in businesses, and particularly for a private equity fund, the type of businesses they look for are of a certain size. So, kind of call it 5 million in EBITDA and higher, and in certain areas. And so one of the things that kind of the thesis of New Page Capital was the idea that the Triad had been historically underinvested in businesses that were in that kind of below that threshold. So where a traditional private equity firm would not go after a smaller business like that. So we started in 2013, and really with this prospect of going to find businesses that were maybe struggling with a succession plan and struggling to find the right financial buyer, and we were going to provide both. And it's been very interesting, because I think as we've gotten into these, our really pitch or selling point is that we're not a kind of churn and burn where we're gonna buy a business and then try to grow it really fast and turn it in a 5 to 7 year period. We're really a buy and hold, and we've kind of morphed into more of what I'd call more of a family office model, where we're targeting these industrial and construction businesses here in the Triad that are being overlooked, frankly. And so we have 4 businesses now. They're all kind of gritty, ugly businesses, and I'm saying that with a smile on my face, because they're the types of businesses that I love to work on. And we've been able to take these businesses that I think, in some cases would have struggled to get to that next generation and carry on the legacy of the original founders or the original owners of the business, and build something here in the Triad. And that was important to me, being a Triad native, being a Greensboro native. Just too often I had seen businesses either move away or slowly die here, and we've had a lot of that. And our goal is, while we can't prevent all that from happening, maybe in some small way we can try to address and create opportunities for folks here in the Triad, and certainly try to carry on the legacy of the original owners.
Thanks, Adam. And I agree. I had to smile when you were describing those businesses too. Grateful for the work that you're doing in our community as well. So as we get to the partnership that we have at First Launch Capital Fund and Cone Health Ventures, one of our investments is Fuse Technology. Adam, why you're the First Launch Capital Fund representative for that investment? Why are you excited about that company and the work that they're doing here in our community?
Yeah, I think it starts with a name like Cone. So, Cone has been around. Cone is one of those big names here in the Triad, and in Greensboro in particular. And that health system is so critical to our future and kind of what we're going to become. And I am so appreciative that a health system like that is willing to get into the venture space, because to me that speaks to a long view that they have, that they want to build something else, build something more here in this community. And so I think it started with that, and then through conversations with the management team and with James and some others, one of the things is that brand that brand of Cone, and certainly in certain specialties, carries a lot of weight outside this region. And so when we saw both the combination of Cone plus the combination of who was involved, we got really excited because I think as a community, we've done a great job of starting a lot of what I'd call small businesses, right? So businesses that, maybe are in that kind of 1 to 5 job range. And those are important, and we're going to continue to support them, and those are great. But with Fuse, it felt like with the name and with the scalability of the platform that's being created or that has been created, we felt like there was more of a scalability factor, and that scalability really excites us for what Fuse can eventually become.
Yes, ditto and ditto and ditto, Adam, thank you. So on a more general level, y'all are both working really hard, and we're very appreciative, those of us that work with these early stage companies as well, to support companies at these stages and increase local investments. Why do you do the work? Adam, you've described it a little bit, but why is it important to you personally to invest your time, efforts, and sometimes dollars into these companies and this space? James, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'd love to start with that. I'll jump in. For me, it sort of starts with I'm really passionate about finding opportunities to impact people's lives. And one of the things that I learned early in my career, and Luann, you know this, we didn't go into it in my intro really, but I spent about 10 years serving internationally, places like Afghanistan and Ethiopia, Southern Africa. And one of the things that we realized is that as much as we could do really good things through aid, the impact that was the most lasting and the most multi-generational was really through creating jobs, creating cultures of work, creating cultures where the employees feel honored and recognized and see paths to improve their lives over time. And so I took that observation when we came back to the US and applied it to building businesses. And so that's sort of part one for me. I feel like through the creation of jobs, through the growing of business, you really have an opportunity to impact people's lives in a multi-generational way. The second is the entire sort of entrepreneurial spirit is about solving problems. And so, we all look around. I kind of mentioned this in the health system context earlier, but as you go through the day, there's any number of times when we all go, oh, that could have been better, whatever it is. And you think, I wish somebody would fix that. Well, I really like working with people who say, I think I can fix that. And they just start trying to figure it out. And having done that myself a couple of times now, it's just hard. And so those folks need some encouragement. They need somebody who's, made a few of the mistakes already so that they don't have to make the same mistakes. At least they'll find their own, I'm sure. But what they ultimately then they're able to do, both of those things, they're improving the world that we're living in. They're solving those problems that are sort of eating away, if you will, at the quality of life. And they're creating jobs that are creating better lives for the folks who get to work in those businesses. And those two things are very meaningful to me. And I would say even to my family, that's just a kind of ethos we live by. So I'm actually feel very privileged and grateful to get to work in the space and to see those things happen.
Gosh, James, I feel like I need to spend some more time with you and hear your whole story. I did not know that about you. So that's great. Adam, what can you add?
That was a pretty awesome answer from James. So, I think for me, I'm not running a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and so I think given my ability and of our companies and all that, I see this space as the space where I feel like I can be most impactful to help this community, and I guess kind of to build on that, it's accessible and so it's 1 to 2 jobs at a time, and that takes patience and that takes time and all that. But for me, becoming an entrepreneur was such a defining moment in my life when I kind of switched from a traditional corporate role and took the leap and took the chance. And it's changed my life, and it's changed my family's life. And it's been, and I'm so incredibly grateful for the countless people who helped me through that process and who helped me get there. And so I view it a little bit of, okay, now it's my turn to give back to someone else, to give them. And it's, you know, it's certainly money, but it's more importantly, it's time and it's energy and it's focus. And I think the more we can do that, the more, you know, we have more good stories coming out of this area of not just new companies, but new companies that are creating jobs and are starting to, you know, really build into something special. And I think we've started to see that. We're laying a lot of seeds, and those seeds sometimes will take time to grow. But I'm so excited over the next decade for what we're going to see from a lot of the startups that are starting to emerge from the Triad.
Great. As you know, I am excited too about what's going on in the community. So, Adam, I'm going to ask you as we wrap up, if there are companies raising capital listening today, what would you share with them at this moment? And then James, I'm going to let you take over after that and say, if you're an investor listening, what would you share with them at this moment in time in our community and in our state? So Adam?
I think I'd focus on two things for those who are trying to raise money. One, resilience is going to be the most important characteristic you have through this. So the folks who I've seen who have been successful in this have been the ones who are resilient and don't get discouraged when they hear no. The second thing I would say is the funds are there. I think that, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'm not sure if that was as much the case, but I can surely attest to now that if the entrepreneur is out there, if they're gritty, if they're looking for, you know, if they're resilient and they've got a good idea and a good business that they're trying to start, there's a lot more interest and a lot more sources of capital than there were 10, 15 years ago. And so what I would tell that person is, you gotta find it. And there are many resources. I think Luann is obviously a great resource, not just with First Launch, but with all the other kind of pockets of money and capital that are out there. You know, we're a maturing market as it relates to entrepreneurial investment. And so that capital stack for entrepreneurs is much more there than it was, you know, again, say a decade ago.
Yep, and I guess I can jump in, Luann, on if for the investors who are looking, you know, I think we're hearing a lot in the news, and we're all somewhat aware that the economy, we're in a bit of a tough economy right now. And so what tends to happen in the tough economies is people hold on to their dollars. And what I would point to is when we look back over the times when we've either had economic downturns or the economy has been tough, some of the biggest, brightest, you know, most shining stars in the entrepreneurial universe were born in those times and grew to great heights and provided really great, exceptional returns to their investors, to the entrepreneurs who formed them, and then impact in the world around them. And so, you know, I would say this is a good time right now. If you're looking for investments, there are still really great companies being formed. There's really great companies getting traction. There's really great companies ready to scale. So wherever in that sort of life cycle of a company you're most interested to participate, I would just say it's really a good time to lean in. You know, the valuations right now are a little lower, or you're able to get a little more for your dollar when you buy in. And those entrepreneurs need those dollars to do the things in the world they're trying to do. So that would be my thought for investors who are sitting there and maybe feeling more inclined to hold on to cash. I would say it's a good time to be buying in, and the opportunities are out there.
Right. That's some great words to end this amazing podcast on. So thank you, James and Adam, so much for your time today. I really know that the insight and information that we've shared is going to be impactful in our community. And I appreciate you both doing the work that you do and being leaders in this space in our region. As we wrap up, I have to talk more about Launch Greensboro and what we do. So really quickly, Launch Greensboro, you can learn more about our programs at launchgreensboro.com. Again, we support entrepreneurs through the growth of their businesses. 2 specific things to mention. Capital Connects is our annual pitch event. We are currently accepting applicants for that competition. It is prize and in-kind gifts as well as connections to investors in our community. So if you are looking to raise capital, I encourage you to go to capitalconnects.com and fill out that application. The deadline is late October. That will be held March 15th here in downtown Greensboro. And additionally, Demo Day is our culmination of our accelerator program, where we celebrate all things entrepreneurship. And that will be December 12th here in downtown as well. So you can learn more at launchgreensboro.com. And thank you for listening. And thank you again to Adam and James. Hope everybody has a good afternoon.
Make sure to subscribe so you get new episodes delivered to your device each week. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at GSO Chamber. See you next time.